Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you about something a little bit different this week, and it's not something that's easy to talk about. To put it in context, I made this painting back in August, and it's just going up now, so that I think is a testament to sort of the weight that the subject carries. And what I want to talk about is failing, missing your expectations, and how to deal with that in a productive and healthy way, which is, I think, something that is absolutely essential for creative professionals or creative hobbyists, any type of creative person to have to deal with, or really just any person. Failure is a inescapable part of human life, and it's really important to be able to take your failures in stride and be able to derive value from that you can then apply moving forward onto bigger and better things. So I wanted to share a couple of strategies I use that can help sort of address failure, head it off at the pass, and turn it into something that, well, you're not going to look forward to it, but maybe you can at least turn it into sort of a weapon to further your own development into whatever pursuit that you are, trying out. So, some of these might work for you, some of them might not. Everybody's different. These are just some of the tools that I use when I'm confronted with a situation where I've either failed to meet my expectations or have ended up with something that I'm not really a huge fan of. So yeah, I started this drawing in August, and it was a challenge for myself to several challenges. And that's kind of the first point I want to make, is that I guess what I want to say is that failure is not a pass-fail situation. Failure itself, success and failure are both meaningless without goals. If you don't have goals, you can't succeed or fail. And if your goal is just to come out with something that looks good, then you aren't pushing yourself enough. You're not challenging yourself. And this only applies to personal things. If you're, for example, a commissioned artist, I would advise you to stay inside your comfort zone as much as possible, because at that point you're not painting or drawing or creating for your development, you're creating for someone else. And you want to have your best foot forward there and create the best possible product, media, whatever it is for that client. But if you're doing something personal, if you're not doing it for money, you should be challenging yourself, because if you're not challenging yourself, you're not going to grow. So if your only goal is to come up with something that looks good, that means you're not challenging yourself, because you could just draw a nice smiley face and accomplish that goal. So this piece for me was a challenge, because I don't typically go for more of an anime style, and I never draw mechanical objects. It was the first time I've ever drawn a gun. It was one of the first time in a while that I've tried a more anime style, and it's the first time I've ever tried anime plus a rendered painting. So there were several goals, and I didn't accomplish all of them. You'll see throughout the painting, I keep going back to her face, and I'm never quite satisfied with it. I still would say I'm not satisfied with it to this day. I did not accomplish that goal of portraying a more anime sort of stylistic facial expression and construction. But regardless, that wasn't my only goal going into that piece. I really wanted to try. The other major goal was her gun that she has, which is something that I've never really attempted before. So despite failing in a couple senses, I think I also succeeded, because even at the sketch stage, dude, I'm impressed with myself. That gun looks pretty good. The other thing I could have done is not gone for a render and just left it at flat lines, maybe cleaned up the line work a little bit, and just kind of left it at that stage. But I wasn't satisfied with that, because I didn't think that was pushing myself enough. I can sketch in an anime style, but I can't paint in one, and that was the point of this challenge. So here you can see in my first pass at this face, very clearly don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not letting that stop me. And when I get to a spot where I don't like it, next strategy is to just move on to something else. Whether it's just coming back to it later in the same piece and working on something that you have more confidence in. Like, for example, I'm pretty adept at handling clothing at this point in my career. So I just went back and worked on her skirt and her shirt and stuff a little bit. And then I came back to her face later to continue that on. Give yourself a breather, approach it with a fresher state of mind. You can also just take a day-long break. I try to take at least one night off before I finish a piece, unless it's like a very quick sketch or something like that, because you come back with clearer eyes, a clear mind. You're looking at it from a different perspective than you were when you were creating it the last day. But sometimes, you know, that's not enough. Sometimes you're still not meeting your expectations. So what can you do? Sometimes when I say you need to move away from it, sometimes it's the whole piece. And I've trashed entire pieces before because I didn't like how they turned out, or I didn't like the direction they were heading if they weren't finished. And that's something that is also, I think, an inescapable portion of an artist's career, is a large body, a massive body of unfinished work. I'll post some of those at the end of this video so you can get a sense of how far I got or whatnot. But this is like the kind of stuff that social media doesn't show you, but also the kind of thing that I can guarantee is in every accomplished artist's, you know, body of work. It's just not the work that they show off. But it's there, you know, you got to trust me on that one. But I think, I imagine if you're an artist watching this, you probably have some of the same stuff going on. But and the point is, that's just a common part of the process. Everybody goes through with it. Everybody doesn't finish everything, you know, so you're not alone there at all. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you might just think it's not salvageable and you got to get rid of it, and that's what you got to do. Here's sort of my third pass at the face, I think, at this point. And this is the one I ultimately end up going with, but I'm still not super happy with it. I do think it's an improvement, but definitely not sort of my goal when I was getting into the piece. So those are a couple strategies. You know, sometimes you gotta sometimes you just gotta let go of the piece and just work on something else. And that's the reality of it. And the important thing, though, is to take the time afterwards, even if you trash it or even if you're not satisfied, to go back, look at it, and reflect on why you felt like it was a failure, why it didn't meet your expectations specifically. Don't just look at it and be like, oh, it's bad. Think about, oh, what made this bad? And think about what you can do to shore up those weak points in the future. If you're not reflecting on things that you consider failures, then you're not gaining anything from them. So it's important to go back and actually actively, like, it's important to be conscious about this, to come up with like actionable things to do going forward. And then it's not so much a failure as it is a learning experience. And that's kind of one of the other strategies I wanted to talk about, was that we're very easily wired as human beings to view things as a dichotomy of success and failure, and meeting goals and falling short of them. But that's not really what reality is. That's reality as we prescribe meaning to it, but that's not reality as it exists. In the actual flow of the world, there's not so much successes and failures, but there's actions and there's opportunities. Opportunities being the potential for actions, and actions being something that you actually do physically or even mentally and emotionally to change the status quo, to affect the world in some way. So if you start to view the world a little bit more like that, you can start to view art from not a goal list perspective. Of course, you still want to have goals because that's how you develop, but not putting so much weight onto the success and failure, but looking for opportunities to grow in the future. Because every failure is that. It's just another opportunity. You have an opportunity to create a piece. That's the first opportunity. You have an idea for a piece of art. And then you put that into action. You start sketching things out. You start drawing. And after that, you're presented with another opportunity where it's either a satisfying outcome and you're like, okay, I have an opportunity to share this on, social media, get some likes, get some dopamine hits to the brain, or you have an opportunity to learn. And actually, even with a successful piece, you have an opportunity to learn too, as long as you actively go back and be like, hey, dude, I nailed those eyes in that drawing I did like a couple weeks ago. I should, what did I do right there? You can look at your successes the same way you look at your failures, because no matter what you're looking at, there is an opportunity to learn there as long as you're cognizant of it and apply that going forward. So if you're not putting as much weight on your successes and failures and looking at every single piece you do, regardless of outcome, as an opportunity to learn and develop, then it becomes a lot more easy to handle, I feel. So I think if you keep all of these sorts of things in mind, you get to a place where, again, you're not like looking forward to failure, because, we're all human. No one can just do that. But you're a little bit, hopefully, more zen about it. And like looking back at this, right as it's transpiring now, like I don't, of course, it didn't meet my expectations. Maybe I kind of bit off a little bit more than I could chew, but looking back at it, there's a lot that I think I did right. Like the rendering on her clothes was super nice. I think I added some nice sort of color highlights, and the color temperatures of her shirt and skirt were pretty interesting. And this gun, for my first time ever doing it, I think it's, pretty solid. It took me a long time to do. I remember that much. But I think in the end, my investment kind of paid off in dividends there. And I came out with a gun that looks, pretty much like a gun, at least from a distance that most people would view it at. So yeah, I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to, and in some ways, this drawing to me was a failure, but it was also an experiment in the first place. And if you're not experimenting, if you're not challenging yourself, well, you're never going to fail, but you're never going to grow either. So you really have to kind of internalize the fact that failure is an inescapable part of the artistic process. So you might as well try and like get something out of it. It's going to happen. Make the most of it. And it's not easy to do. This has taken me, years, maybe decades to develop this mindset. And it's taken me a lot of work. I've just been, busting at drawing here. And it's not easy. But, I believe in you guys. And hopefully you got some value out of this. I think it's something, I see it on Discord. I see it on Twitter all the time of people not having confidence and feeling like they're not good enough. And that's all part of the journey, but I hope that this was able to help you guys out a little bit. And I'll see y'all next time. Next time's gonna be interesting, actually. It kind of relates to this topic. We're gonna be talking about how destruction is a necessary part of creation and how you can actually create via destroying. So I hope you guys tune into that, and I'll see you then next week. Peace.